everyone. This is Tamara from shelfaddiction.com, and welcome to episode 68. We are here live today recapping and reviewing episode 9, which is also the mid-season return of The Walking Dead Season 7. If you're listening live, leave us a comment on Spreaker. We want to hear your thoughts on last night's episode. If you're enjoying our live episode, go ahead and share it on Twitter right now. Show your support by rating the podcast and leaving a positive review on iTunes. The podcast can be found on the Spreaker app, iTunes, Google Play Music, the Stitcher app, and more. Joining me is PCS co-host, fellow TV junkie, and indie author Lisa Orban. Want to comment on something you've heard during today's episode? Leave a comment now, or you can also find me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. You can also find Lisa on Twitter at Lisa Orban Author. If you'd like to email in feedback or questions, feel free to reach out to me at info@shelfaddiction.com. Hey Lisa, good afternoon, or evening, excuse me, good evening.
Good evening, Tamara. I'm so excited. The Walking Dead is back, and so are we.
I know. After a long hiatus, it feels like it was 8 or 9 weeks or something.
I don't know. It felt like this side of forever. You know?
I know. I'm so happy it's back. And you know what? They did us a good, they gave us what do you call it? When someone does you a solid. That's the phrase I'm looking for. By giving us a good episode to return to. So it's all good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was really enjoying it. It was, nobody died. I would just like to point out, not a single person died in this episode. It's like a miracle.
I know. We should be happy. I mean, I am happy because you never know what you're going to get. And actually, I was a little bit worried we might get one of those filler episodes, but it wasn't. It was actually a really good forward-moving, plot-wise, character-wise episode, which I was excited to see, so it's good.
Well, and it left us with some mysteries that we're going to have to try and figure out, what's up with Father Gabriel and that whole thing. I'm really intrigued. I mean, he left his Bible behind, he took all the supplies, he did leave a note, for them to find, but I just, what can his plan be?
Right. I don't know. Do we want to throw some hypotheses about that now, or should we start from the beginning?
Well, he started off at the show in the beginning, so I don't know. Okay. I mean, it seems appropriate.
All right, let's do it. So, first, the guy or woman, do you remember at the end of the last episode, there was someone watching them with this boot? So I feel like the person, I don't know if you noticed, when Gabriel drove off in the car, there was someone in the passenger seat. Did you see that?
I was kind of wondering about that, but then I thought, well, maybe it's just shadow.
No, because it looked like someone was kneeling down, and then they got upright as the car drove off. And I'm like, I bet it's the same person. Because if you flash forward to the end, the very end, we meet a new group of people. And I feel like one of those people could have been that person. So
yeah. Now, because I did notice, again with the other mystery is, normally when Rick encounters some new group, he's pretty, and especially if it's unexpected, he's pretty quick to draw and get all roar. And this time he smiled, and it was one of the most, serene smiles I think I have seen out of him in seasons.
Yeah.
He looked transcendent, and I'm going, all right, he knows something,
See, and I don't know if he quote unquote knew anything. I just felt like he knew, okay, they have a lot of weapons, and these are people that I can get on my team. Like, I can, I feel like he's like, okay, we don't have, Hilltop just yet. We don't have the kingdom all the way just yet. So I need some more people, and these are my people. So he was kind of like rubbing his hands together like, yes, more people with weapons.
Yes. Come to me. Oh, thank you. Ask and you shall provide. He just did go to the kingdom after all. So I have asked. And I did, there were some really kind of comical, for all the serious stuff that was going on, there were some actually fairly comical moments going on in this, and my favorite out of all of them was that Jesus forgot to mention Shiva.
Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, the tiger.
Yeah. He's walking in, he's like, and then he's like, I'd like to present you to, and then Jesus turns around and they're all like 20 feet back, all clustered in the door. He's like, oh yeah, forgot to mention the tiger.
You know, it was kind of funny to me how, like, Rick got on really fast. He got on board with King Ezekiel and this and that. But then I started thinking, well, he probably, you know, took to it so quickly because he knew that time was of the essence, that he didn't have time to play around. He didn't have time to try to call shenanigans and get to the bottom of it. He's like, I just need your people. I'll call you whatever you want to be called. We'll do this.
Well, I think Rick can be, especially when he's thinking clearly. And I think that this is the first time, and again, in several seasons, where he is really thinking clearly. And it's very measured and it's very middle of the road. It's not deep despair any longer. And it's no longer that cocky, overconfident, I got this, we're, rawr thing going on that he had. Right. And he's not the crazy, psychotic, willing to do anything to survive. He's actually seemed to have found that middle of the road somewhere. And when he looked at King Ezekiel, I think he kind of went, I get it. It's a little over the top.
Yep.
But it is, Ezekiel has, between the tiger and the way he speaks, he has a presence, an absolute presence. And I think that Rick can very much appreciate that right now.
Yeah. Well, his whole little team seems like they're at some Renaissance festival because, when the two guys stroll up on the horse, they're making their little proclamations and saying things. And then they see, Jesus, and they're like, oh, hey, dude, what's up? It's you. And then they like kind of get out of character to have this conversation.
Hark, who goeth there? Or something like that. And he's like, oh, it's just you, Jesus. Never mind.
Yeah. Like they broke character.
It's like the weirdest Disneyland ever. And so I did find it interesting that Morgan, that when Morgan and Rick got together, there was a little bit of distance because Rick didn't ask how Morgan had been. The first thing he said is, did you find Carol? That was his priority. And so I really think that there's still some love lost between the two of them. I mean, they have respect for each other, but there's still that, I'm not really trusting you because you screwed things up on both sides.
Yeah.
And,
and even Rick doesn't really speak well of Morgan, like in the way, like, when the guy asked him, how do you know him? He didn't say, oh, he's been a part of my group, or he didn't say, he just said, I've known him since the beginning, right? We've known each other since the beginning, which isn't like he respects him. He respects what he's been through and stuff, but I don't really think he sees him on his team, really.
Yeah. It's kind of like he's someone that when they kind of align up, on the same goals, they'll kind of go in lockstep with each other, but both of them are are more than willing to break away as soon as it tugs either to the left or the right.
Right.
They're not really allies. They're just non-combatants towards each other.
Right. Exactly.
And I think they do respect each other, at least as far as their fighting skills and stuff. And they kind of, and I think they spend a lot of time kind of sizing each other up. Can I take him? So, because, they have fallen into fighting with each other and fighting by each other's side as well. So, there is that respect there, but I don't think that there's any love. Not like there is, like for Daryl or Carol or, anybody else. And then Morgan himself kept the fact that he knows where Carol is from them.
Right. Right.
So,
but you know what? They have a different way of thinking of things. Like even when, Rick was trying to convince Ezekiel to, join the team. These are all the reasons why. These are all the people they killed. Even Morgan at that point, he was like, wait a minute. Like, why can't we just take out Negan? Why do we have to fight all these people? Like, he's like precision, right? So like Rick is like, let's just go in and blow them all up. And he's like, come on, let's just take out the head and see what happens. So, you know, even with his whole, with the story of, you know, and the title, what was it? The Rock in the Road or something like that?
Yeah, The Rock in the Road.
So it's almost like Morgan thinks the Rock is Negan and Rick thinks the Rock is all the saviors. So take the Rock out. And I don't know which is right, honestly, because from what I've heard... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm in the middle of the road there, because remember when Michonne, she kidnapped one of the people from Negan's, you know, one of the saviors, and had her drive her to their settlement. And she just kind of stopped and looked, and she said, "We are Negan." You know, it's kind of like we are Legion. Yeah. And I really think taking out Negan will do damage. Don't get me wrong. It really will. But I also don't think they can just stop right there. He has a, you know, he's got a hierarchy in place, and there are bad people with him that enjoy the kind of life that they have with Negan and do not want it to be, you know, a cooperative thing. They like going and stealing things. They like going and terrorizing other people. Yeah. And they wouldn't just roll over simply because Negan was dead. Now, they might break up into a dozen little different boring camps.
Right.
But now instead of having one problem, they have a dozen problems.
See, I think that, you know, I'd like to think that not like the majority of his group, they're not the killers. The majority are like the people that feel like they're trapped, so they're going along, right? Right. Almost like they're forced to, so they're going to do it because they have no other choice. And I know they do have some homicidal killers in that group, but I'd like to think that it's the minority of them, not all of them.
And I think, I honestly think if they just took out the top tier, that would pretty much end Negan's reign. So, I mean, they could, in theory, use explosives. They would just have to get him into those, you know, executive apartments, so to speak. There would be some collateral damage, don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't be the same as blowing everyone up. But there is probably about a dozen or so people that would absolutely have to go aside from Negan.
Yeah, for sure. Like his little second and third in command, his little, his like you said, his like council, his little core group.
You know, Mutton Chops. I can't remember his name right now, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, him. He would have to go because he is, in his own way, just as vicious and just as terrible as Negan. Yeah. And would gladly pick up the bat and carry on in Negan's name.
Yeah. So, but not only that, this is going to be a tough fight because I don't think, based on what I've heard from the comic books, I don't think they've done a good job representing how large Negan's network actually is. Yeah. So obviously they're trying to gather more and more people, right? More people that can fight. But I mean, I don't think we really have seen the numbers that he actually commands, right?
We got that brief glimpse, like I said, when Michonne was sitting there in the car on that hilltop, and you could just see this big open, and you could just see all the people. Yeah. And so you kind of got a sense, but that doesn't include like all the people out scavenging, all the people out, you know, in the satellite,
all those people.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, so you know, there's probably a couple hundred right there. You know, and how do you decide who lives and dies in those particular situations? Now it could be hoped that if they can take out the main headquarters there, that those little outposts, they usually only have about 20 or so people. So in theory, they would be left to their own devices and cut off from the main support. They could be easily picked off or absorbed into their own groups. Yeah. But man, it would be, you know, what do you do, man? What do you do?
I know. It's tough. And, you know, speaking of blowing things up, man, Rosita, she is the business. She's like, look, we leave this, take that, do this first, do that second. And she called it. She was like, oh, this one doesn't look good to me. Let's leave it. And that thing blew up. Yes.
Oh, and man, the two cars.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
Vroom. I mean, just mowed them down. And I'm thinking, that's actually not a bad idea.
I know. That was the coolest thing I've seen. I'm like, now they need to learn how to take that and apply it later when they have a herd of them. They just mow them down.
Yeah, if they could just get a nice, couple mile stretch of highway completely unobstructed,
Mm-hmm.
and on one end of it just start hitting the horn,
Mm-hmm.
and, have a car like that, two, I would go with a truck at that point just to make sure that it, and just mow them down.
Oh,
you
know.
get rid of thousands of them that way.
I know.
But,
it was crazy. I'm like, wow.
although, I have been noticing this, and I don't know if you've been catching this, but the zombies, the walkers, are becoming a little more, well, moth-eaten, I guess.
Yeah.
They're not holding together as well. They're not moving. I mean, they never were all that fast-moving to begin with, but they're getting slower moving. They're not as, ambulatory anymore. And you can see as the show is progressing, they are becoming less and less of the threat, and other humans are becoming more and more of the threat to our very existence as ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're always going to kind of be there in the background, but zombies really are not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there are fewer and fewer of them, but I still wish I had some kind of like point of reference to figure out, are the zombies 80% of the population? Are they 90%?
There is a geek somewhere, and I was kind of listening to it, but it's been a while. I'm trying to remember his numbers, and he was going both on. He's an avid reader of the comic books, and he was watching the Walking Dead, and I guess he's a mathematician of some sort, and started to doing statistical extrapolations and saying, okay, based on the number per capita of people that they are finding in these areas, I am going to estimate, and I think he said he went with like 87% of the population turned within the first blow, because people were so unexpected of it. So, it rolled over them so fast that they didn't even know what was happening until it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the survivors survived not because they were smart, but just because they were lucky.
Right. Ugh.
So yeah, so, big, so, I mean, now, still, about, what would that make, 17% of the population? 17% of the population, still several million people worldwide.
Right.
But, it's more a matter of finding each other and then not killing each other.
Right. I mean, because they have so many groups within, like, a certain distance of each other, because while we were introduced to this, or we got a little flash of this new group at the end, don't forget about Oceanside. They are still there. They still have plenty of weapons. So I feel like we're going to see them again before it's all, before it's all said and done. We might actually see Rick pull in these other groups before the kingdom actually agrees, because I feel like he's going to agree. He's just waiting.
Yeah. I think, that talk that King Ezekiel had with the older teen, I can't remember his name either, and he's like, we help people because we can, because there's not a lot of us left anymore. We do it because it's right, not because it's easy. And Ezekiel was like, thanks for the talk and stuff. But I thought that was a really special moment, especially when he was talking to Carol. Would you like some water? I always carry extra water. Mm-hmm. Why? Mm-hmm. There's not many of us left anymore.
Right.
And he was, and so that, there's kind of two kinds of people anymore. There's him, and then there's the saviors, and there's really not a whole lot of in between. It's either you're helping or you're hurting, and the ones that are hurting, while they may do well and flourish in the immediate, long term, they are not viable solutions for the, for the population, not long term.
Right. Well, I honestly felt like before he even had that conversation with the guy, he had made up his mind that he was going to help, and the reason why I think that, he was saying the Martin Luther King speech to that little
Yeah.
kid. I'm like, no, he knows what this is about. He is just waiting for a reason, but he's going to do it,
Yeah. I don't think if he sees that the odds are good, because right now what he sees is they're asking me to supply all the people and all the manpower, and they're, to win their war.
Yeah.
When we're okay right now. And I think if Rick comes back with the numbers, with a viable option, with an actual plan. Okay, we are going to.
Right.
And I think that'll make all the difference in the world, because he does know things cannot stay. He even said, I had visions of more sanctuaries like this everywhere. And the reason he stopped was Negan.
Right.
In the end. So, he realizes it's, they're going to have to eventually expand. They're going to have to move out, because even where they're at, there's going to start to become population pressure if they don't have room to expand.
Exactly.
And they're doing well enough to, actually be thinking about having children and raising families, and, and they're going to need space.
Yeah, they will. I mean, they really will. And I don't know. It's all going to come together. I feel it. Just how long before it comes together? We have the whole back half of this season. How long will they take building this, this army?
Coalition?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really going to be more of a coalition than an actual army.
Yeah.
I don't see... I see each of the groups kind of helping each other out, but in the end, they're going to fight it within their own groups.
Yeah.
Because trust is kind of a thing that's not real prevalent right now.
Right. Right.
So, and then, because you also have to think about, there are the remains of Negan's group still running around.
Yeah.
And there are the remains of the hospital group still running around. So, there's people everywhere. It's just more a matter of finding them, digging them out, and, getting them to help.
I'm really curious to see how many of Negan's own people will revolt, like the couple. I mean, how many people will, when they figure out something is up, will switch teams and fight?
My guess is, like I said, all the upper echelon, those who have something to lose will fight for Negan. But all the people that are down below, the ones that are working with the zombies, and the ones that are basically slaves, and they've got the A, it is an A, I believe, right, on the t-shirt?
Yeah.
All of those, they are, uprising! Our time has come!
Right.
There's no way that they're going to support Negan. And the fact is the have-nots far outweigh the haves in that society.
Right.
And they're only being kept in check because they're afraid and they don't have weapons. But if they think for 1 minute that there's a chance, I think they'll turn on a dime just to get out of that situation.
Oh, yeah. No one wants to be that in that role. Nobody. So,
nope.
Do you think that, I think that this is a little foreshadowing. You guys tell me if you think so too. That kid that Carol was talking to, and I think that's the same kid that Morgan was training. She's like, you're loud, so loud. I heard you a mile away. You can't be doing this. You can't be out here, and, he wants to fight so bad. He wants to be, out there doing good things. I feel like that's foreshadowing that he's going to die. I don't think he's going to make it.
I think he's going to get killed by one of Negan's guys, and that is going to be the final straw for King Ezekiel.
Yeah.
I think that, because I know that his father was killed, and I'm not real sure, but I think he was also killed by one of the Savior's men.
Yeah.
And for King Ezekiel to lose him as well, when, right there on the cusp of manhood, so to speak, when he's really actually starting to become a full-blown actual adult person, to have him, just disappear like that, I think it would be too much. And King, because the one thing is King Ezekiel loves his people. He doesn't do it because he loves power. He really is more of a shepherd than a ruler. And and he very much takes the safety of his people very, very seriously, which is why I think he turned down Rick to begin with.
Yeah.
Because Rick came with an idea, not a plan.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I get that. I do. But why not help him develop a plan? Why just say, no, bring me a plan? I mean, I don't know. Why?
I think because I think because if he sends him away like it is and Rick does nothing, then Rick is not worthy of their effort and his efforts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Rick has to prove to King Ezekiel that he is worthy of everything they have to risk.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And he will do that, because you know what? Rick is back. Like, the alpha of Rick is back. But like you said, not in the crazy, out of control way. No. But, you know, what we like about him in the beginning of this, you know, whole thing.
Right. At the beginning of the show, when he was clear-headed and he was determined and he was focused, and yeah, before he went through the many faces of Rick.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, now I am curious to see what's going to happen when Carol and Daryl see each other again, because
I know. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen soon. They're gonna cross paths.
And I think, I don't know. I mean, because there is something between the two of them. I don't know if they'll ever get together like as a couple, but there is a bond between the two of them. And you know, and I think when she finds out everything that Daryl has been through and everything that the Saviors did to him, I think she's gonna take it personally.
Oh, she probably will.
You know, and I know she's tired of fighting. But I think she's also looking for a reason to care anymore. And I think Daryl could be her reason.
Yeah. Well, you know, she is like, I mean, she is one tough chick. I'm telling you. It's like I'm sorry, I said this before and I still mean it. If we were choosing a team, I would choose Carol first. Every time. I would choose Carol. Because she will take care of business. She knows how to be almost invisible. She knows how to be a chameleon. She's a killer. I mean, she's got all the tools in her toolbox.
Yeah, well, kind of like when King Ezekiel's first lieutenant, he's like talking to Carol, and he's like, I know that this is, you know, a little more violent than maybe what you're used to, and, you know, you're not a very violent person. And Morgan's sitting there trying not to die laughing. No, you don't understand. She's mean.
Like, she will slit your throat right now.
And then bake a pie.
And she might lace it with poison, or she might not. I don't know.
You know, kind of like when she was talking to the kid, then she's like, have a cookie.
Like, I don't know if I want to eat anything you've made. I don't know.
I mean, she's cold-blooded, man.
Oh, I know.
She is, her and Daryl are two of my favorite characters. I mean, Rick I kind of go back and forth on, but Carol and Daryl I really do. They are two of the characters I really have enjoyed their character development. They of everyone have probably most significantly and profoundly changed the most on this show.
Yeah. But even with changing, like Daryl, he still doesn't have that people person personality. So the fact that Rick has charged him with changing Ezekiel's mind, I'm like, you're asking someone who is like, says 2 words a day. He's the muscle, not the brain, or, you know.
Yeah, but he does have his moments, and he does have certain ways with words, and he can be, you know, he's not prolific in his speech, but he does have some really profound things to say when he does say them. You know, and honestly, you know, again, Carol and Daryl are two of those characters that if it had not been for the zombie apocalypse, they would have languished in really god-awful lives of no hope. Both of them, under the oppressive thumb of somebody else.
I feel like Carol would have been dead. If the zombie apocalypse never happened, her husband would have killed her. She'd be dead.
Yeah. And let's face it, you know, Earl got Daryl in so much trouble, and, you know, always kind of left him out there as bait and was forever beating him up and keeping him under his thumb. You know, Daryl never got it. You know, it wasn't until Daryl was gone and her husband was finally gone that those two were finally allowed to be the people they started to fulfill the potential, the person they were always supposed to be.
Yeah.
And they're actually pretty cool people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited for next week. I feel like, and I know every episode is not going to be this good. They're going to throw in some boring stuff in there.
Oh, probably.
So,
but they hit the ground running, and so I'm really thrilled. And nobody died.
Yes. I mean, as long as they keep feeding us the main storyline and we keep going in a forward movement, even though I know we're going to get a couple boring ones here and there, I think it'll be all okay. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're off to a good start, and I've got my fingers crossed. We've got a whole bunch of little mysteries to start looking forward to, and they're giving us our little Easter eggs and our breadcrumbs along the way. So I'm really excited about this. It seems like it's going somewhere really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I guess we're done. You think we're done?
We are done.
Week? All right. Mm-hmm. So, you guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for streaming, downloading, all that fun stuff. We love when you listen to us. So, please come back next week. And we will be here next week with bells on, right, Lisa?
Yes, we will.
Okay. All right, guys. So, that's it for today. And we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you are enjoying Pop Culture Sunday and would like to show your support, there are a few things that you can do. First, you can head on over to iTunes and give a positive 5-star review. You can follow both myself and Lisa on Twitter. You can follow the Shelf Addiction podcast here on Spreaker, the only place where you can listen live and get broadcast notifications so that you never miss an episode. Most importantly, you can share the podcast with friends and family that enjoy pop culture as much as you do. Thank you for listening. We will see you here on Pop Culture Sunday next week. Until next time, happy viewing.